right. Thank you all for coming out early morning on the last day of the summit. So my name's Stephen Gates. Today we'll be talking about crypto's opportunity for infinite growth, and I think it's going to happen right here on Avalanche. So who we are, we started off as GoGoPool, which was an Avalanche liquid staking token. We've launched over 2,000 validators on Avalanche and on L1s, and we've met with over 400 teams over the past 2 or 3 years, figuring out with builders what do they need, and especially these Web 2 builders who take Web 3 money, what do they need to create true mass adoption, and how can we arm them with the tools to do so. Our mission, we really believe that blockchains are going to the next platform for entrepreneurship, and I think that's going to happen on Avalanche L1s. Mainly because the Avalanche L1 architecture is the only one that is configured to be regulatory compliant. You can create native gasless experience for the best onboarding of your users. The tokenomics on an L1 retain the full network value that you create, which can only happen when you own your own chain. Decentralization creates new user experiences. And very interestingly enough, for these Web 2 teams, they get to be interoperable. They get to start off building a Web 2 product on a Web 3 backend and become interoperable with the internet capital markets that are in crypto. But that last point is where everything gets sticky. So mass adoption, what we've learned over the past 3 years working through this, it really needs a 100x simpler launch model for founders to really adopt the technology and create an impact. Today, tokens are used for capital formation events, linked to down-only charts because these tokens launch pre-revenue, pre-product market fit. There is always a fundamental economic misalignment between what users want, what traders want, and what the project wants, which again leads from day zero, from the time they launch, immediately people start squawking at each other. And today, the infrastructure to roll your own chain has historically still been slow, expensive, and especially very risky to create the decentralization. So over the past 3 years, through all of this, as we've been working with teams, we've been working on so much more than just a liquid staking token. We've built the underlying infrastructure to onboard validator nodes, and these L1s require the systems, capital, and alignment that's really required to be able to treat Web3 as an API or even as off-the-shelf compared to a MongoDB or Web2 database. And what we're now doing is really evolving from being just a product, a liquid staking product, to becoming a full verticalized platform that helps launch these L1s. And with that, we have a few announcements, but the first is that we're now evolving our brand to Hifa. So beautiful. That's so beautiful. Hifa means alignment. Hifa is the unit of alignment, and we think L1s are the best way for founders to create products that realign with their users, so that the users can partake in the growth of their protocol. For Hifa, we are now announcing an L1 launchpad to create these aligned ecosystems. It comes as we're improving the way capital formation happens in crypto. We're giving founders a way to bootstrap users and network security. And we have built-in decentralization at the core every single step of the way, so that as a founder becomes comfortable, first they launch as a proof of authority. As they become comfortable, they can become a full permissionless system. With that, we have a few announcements. The first are for this capital formation event. Validator sales are now live. So when in the previous model, you would do an ICO, where you launch the token, you immediately give it liquidity, and now suddenly the performance of your protocol is being rated by the market minute to minute, 24/7. But the most powerful piece of an ICO for these teams are to use it as a capital formation event, where they can fund development and create their community. So the problem is these misaligned launches where traders immediately want performance, but products are pre-product market fit. We think that the real solution is a validator license sale. This allows an L1 to launch as a proof of authority. They can then decide, I now want to scale out to 50 or 500 validator nodes. And for those slots, now they can auction them off or sell them off to their communities and allow their communities to purchase NFT licenses, which then give them the right to bootstrap the decentralization of this network, partake in the upside over the entire life cycle of that network, and use hardcore, very secure infrastructure on the back end. So all technical complexities are now abstracted away from both the project as well as to the community member who is excited about the project and would like to partake and build ownership. So this is what the platform looks like. We went live in stealth about a month ago for a company called CXChain. Had an amazing poker night yesterday, very well attended. 300 people showed up. CXChain is an on-chain casino protocol, and they hosted a validator license using the platform. So they have their own landing page on l1marketplace.com. Now if you go to hifa.sh, it's live. They give the information about what these node licenses can do, and a user, imagine this as a user, all you do is click this Stake Now button. You decide how many validators you're going to want to run. You pay for your staking cost up front, which includes Avalanche pay-as-you-go fees. Approve, purchase, and then it stakes. Under the hood, it's going through the Gogo Pool protocol, or the previous smart contract set, where it's an Uber for validator nodes. And we work with over 40 different hardware operators to match up these licenses with real staking groups who are pros at this stuff. The user then goes to their dashboard, and they can review, here are all the chains that I'm validating, what's the total amount, staked amount, how many credits, etc. They get to now manage their hardware fleet all from one easy-to-use dashboard. Not once did they have to go to AWS and purchase an EC2 instance. Not once did they have to touch a line of code. And not once will they have to maintain the uptime of their validator nodes, because now they've hired out a decentralized cloud provider to do so. Here we can see all the validator licenses that are staking, that are complete, validating, etc. And proof is in the pudding. So around this capital formation event, Beam L1 was the very first one that we worked with in December. We started working with them actually early Q4. And their core problem was, we have a proof of authority blockchain. Now I want to become proof of stake, and I want to be aligned with my community. I want to bring them along for the ride, and they want to make it profitable for everybody involved. So it was a capital formation event. And they successfully completed a $73 million validator sale, despite already having a live token. Next up, we're announcing a bootstrapping program. So now that we have a infrastructure in the validator sale primitive for capital formation events, now our next step is to create a flywheel between the AVAX token and L1 adoption. And for this, we're announcing a points program. So the problem on the founder side is that it's unprofitable for them, especially when they're new, to increase their network security from AVAX token holders or from the AVAX community. And on the flip side of the market, these stakers have no way to receive exposure to the entire L1 ecosystem. You need to make singular bets on, hey, I like Beam, I'll run a hardware for Beam. Or hey, I like Paradise Tycoon, I'll figure them out and run hardware for Paradise Tycoon. But now with GG AVAX, you can stake your AVAX tokens, and then these AVAX will now be used to secure the initial networks across the entire ecosystem that we have. And now for GG AVAX stakers, they'll be able to earn points, which then will convert into actual ownership into the entire L1 ecosystem that launches with these validator sales in our launchpad. So through this, we're aggregating a support base from the AVAX community via this limited points program, and we're doing a full rollout and full announcement coming soon. Again, this creates this flywheel where we stake GG AVAX, which creates enhanced economic security, and it aggregates a community base, This feeds over to securing these validator licenses, which then bootstraps the L1 in exchange for providing that security. GGP is being used for the meta incentives and the governance token of where incentives will go, how many points program, etc. So stakers are able to get early upside and compound their upside across the entire L1 ecosystem that launches inside of this launchpad. Again, proof is in the pudding. So Casino X, CXChain, they also just completed a $250,000 validator sale. 100% of it came from AVAX token holders and GGP stakers. So as a capital formation event, their founder experience now is getting in touch with stakers and putting their offering out to stakers saying, hey, we're going to be incentivizing people to run hardware for our protocol. They used our launchpad, and they're able to form capital around it. And now they're rolling over, and they'll be working on creating product market fit, generating revenue, and then expanding the validator set as they go. And lastly, decentralization is at the core for everything, because decentralization really, really matters. People think it doesn't matter until it does. But I believe that where the world is going, having cheap and easy to use decentralization so far has been really the only blocker to teams not adopting and have larger validator sets and really treating their protocols like actual protocols. So the problem for these teams is that bootstrapping validators is very slow, expensive, and risky. On Cosmos, the teams that we've worked with, they've spent 9 months and about $1.4 million to create bespoke deals across a set of 10 to 15 hardware groups for a limited number of validator slots. But now, with the Hifa staking protocol, under the hood, we've aggregated a cohort of KYB'd hardware operators, are making the process become more and more permissionless so that these hardware operators in crypto can build genuine businesses and create sustainable compounding businesses over the years with us and the L1 ecosystem. Because for them, bids just show up. They say, hey, this EVM chain needs 6 months of hardware. They can click a button, integrate into our SDK, and then immediately get connected to the L1 and start earning real sustainable revenue denominated in cash. This sounds like in Web2 terms, this is like, okay, obviously. In crypto, by far the biggest pain point we've heard is, well, I'm getting paid in a token, but what's the token worth? Do I hold? Do I sell? I have real electricity costs to pay. So these guys need steady, stable revenue so they can build and compound, and they always end up turning into the largest community members, the most vocal voices on crypto Twitter about the L1s that they support. And this has all been bundled together to power the one-click validation. So for Cocknet, this was our large-scale infrastructure test of, okay, now what level of throughput can we actually handle? How do we coordinate with all these different hardware operators? And with Cocknet, we onboarded 1,300 validator nodes in 3 days. And the last day, we onboarded 1,200 in 3 hours. And that was all flowing through the system, reaching across 20 or 30 validator providers where they just saw bids coming in. Users were going through this validator sale mechanism that I showed earlier, clicked a button, created a bid, and then these hardware operators just saw on a dashboard, new order coming in, great. And then they're in the boiler room, setting up the hardware, maintaining the VM, maintaining uptimes. So one-click decentralization happened in the course of 3 hours. It's really, really quite incredible. So now the question is, we have these 3 things. We've done 3 individual case studies in the past, say, 6 months. The Hifa protocol is wrapping all of this together now in one easy-to-use platform for founders, hardware providers, and stakers. People can now stake GG AVAX to secure these early networks, get upside to the entire ecosystem. This creates alignment with the AVAX community. Hardware operators now get to build sustainable businesses inside of crypto, something that can only happen on Avalanche and then is now only happening on Avalanche. And founders get a more streamlined launch model with something that actually makes sense, where you're not just launching a token into the void. So now what does this mean for Avalanche and for all of us? This means that L1 season is starting. We are now going to be rolling out every single L1 that we've worked with. And we'll be doing this capital formation event with built-in alignment mechanisms through the liquid staking token and all while working to create cheaper and cheaper and more practical decentralization for these teams. So we think that the future is going to be very aligned, and it'll be built here on Avalanche. The flywheel that we're going to be starting to spin is we're starting off with great projects who want to launch their L1s and bootstrap the validator sets and start finding product market fit. This then grows our community because all of the best founders have their own communities. They also have their own distribution. So they'll be adding their communities over into what is already existing today on Avalanche, which means more AVAX will be staked to service the demand for network security from these new L1s that are bootstrapping. By staking GG AVAX, the AVAX community now has a way to earn ownership, to build ownership into the L1 ecosystem, according to the original Avalanche vision. By providing a service to these L1s, you'll now be earning tokens, which will represent real ownership in the entire L1 ecosystem. So now this larger community will attract bigger and better founders at a more rapid pace, at a higher scale. And as we keep chopping off and becoming more and more permissionless as Hifa, more and more protocolized, these communities will begin to start cross-pollinating. The next phase, for the next summit, I'm sure what we'll be talking about is interoperability and how we're starting to connect all these different L1s together and connecting all the different communities together so that they can start cross-pollinating their capital bases, which then will result in more bootstrap validator sales. At scale, where we're really going with this is I think this is the best bet for all Web2 founders to became a dirty word in Silicon Valley. But I come from that world. And these entrepreneurs, they need blockchain. It gives them such powerful advantages to innovate. With this flywheel, we'll be scaling it, spinning the flywheel. Eventually, all of Y Combinator companies will start considering just launching a blockchain, not necessarily launching a token, but they can launch a blockchain and create decentralized experiences for the world. And at the root of it all is going to be the AVAX infrastructure and the Hifa protocol as the alignment layer, powering the most viable ecosystem in crypto. So with that, thank you so much.